Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. In recent days, several Chinese-listed companies revealed that they had been asked by local authorities to pay tax bills dating back as far as the 1990s, sparking speculation that regional governments are doing so to fill local coffers. The speculation so spooked businesses that it led to the State Taxation Administration in Beijing on Tuesday announcing, quote, "The tax authorities have not organized nationwide, industry-wide or centralized tax inspections, nor have they arranged for retrospective audits of 20 to 30 years. The recent reflections on tax audits and supplementary taxes involve either the collection of overdue taxes from previous years according to procedures or the notification of tax policy application risks to enterprises according to procedures. All are routine, lawful duties of tax authorities." End quote. Last week, Jiangsu-based VV Food and Beverage Co. said that a liqueur-making unit it used to own was told to pay roughly 85 million yuan, $11.7 million, for undisclosed income from the 1995 through 2009 period. In Zhejiang, a chemical manufacturer has suspended some of its production lines after being asked to pay additional taxes that could amount to as much as $500 million RMB due to a change in tax rules. As regular viewers know, local governments are facing very difficult fiscal conditions, especially with the collapse in land use sales, formerly a lucrative extra budgetary revenue source for local governments. These stories of back-taxing were being viewed as a tool for local governments to claw in more income, concerning many in the business community. While the top taxation authority tried to calm spooked businesses with its comments this week, it also pledged to further crack down on tax fraud and create a fair market environment. Quote, "I'm not sure businesses and investors are reassured. Local governments need more revenue. It is hard for the tax bureaus to go after state-owned firms. Private businesses are much easier targets." End quote. Meanwhile, China saw the world's biggest outflow of high-net-worth individuals last year, as it expected to see a record exodus of 15,200 in 2024, dealing a further blow to its economy, according to a new report from investment migration firm Henley & Partners. As a side note, the UK is also seeing a relatively large outflow of high-net-worth individuals. The report found that uncertainty over China's economic trajectory and geopolitical tensions are top reasons for Chinese millionaires, in US dollar terms, to leave the country. The top destinations for these migrants are the UAE, the US, Singapore, Canada, and Australia. Andrew Amoyles, head of research at New World Wealth, a wealth intelligence firm that collaborated with Henley & Partners on the report, said this week, quote, "In our experience, the high net worth individuals that normally move most are the ones with between 30 million and $1 billion in wealth." End quote. Japanese financial media outlet Nikkei Asia, writing on the report, explains that the large number of rich Chinese heading elsewhere, quote, "could add to the strain on the nation's fragile economy. A prolonged property crisis has sunk large developers and badly dented the country's wealth while weighing on debt-laden local governments." End quote. Adding that Singapore has traditionally attracted rich Chinese due to its proximity to China, cultural links, and use of Mandarin, but that the city-state has stepped up scrutiny of inbound Chinese wealth. Singapore recently denied 2 Chinese individuals permission to set up a family office, a common way to acquire citizenship, after a money laundering scandal. We note too that Hong Kong lost around 500 high-net-worth individuals last year, adding to concerns that the city may be in decline. Taiwan also lost a net 400 net-worth individuals last year, with geopolitical concerns cited as a leading reason. Indeed, with surging international millionaire migration, we may be seeing a red flag globally. Quote, "As the world grapples with a perfect storm of geopolitical tensions, economic uncertainty and social upheaval, millionaires are voting with their feet in record numbers. In many respects, this great millionaire migration is a leading indicator, signaling a profound shift in the global landscape and the tectonic plates of wealth and power, with far-reaching implications for the future trajectory of the nations they leave behind, or those which they make their new home." End quote. Next up, yesterday, Tuesday, Ecuador's foreign ministry said that it was effectively reinstating a visa requirement for travellers from China, citing an increase in irregular migratory flows. Ecuador has been a key starting point for PRC citizens wanting to make their way to the United States. As of July, travellers from the PRC will again need a visa from the PRC to enter the country. The ministry said that many Chinese travellers had overstayed the permitted 90-day period, with some potentially using Ecuador as a stepping stone to reach other destinations in the region. US-based think tank Niskanen Center writes in a note this week that since most Chinese migrants enter the Americas via Ecuador, quote, these records can reasonably be used to draw inferences about irregular Chinese migration. This assumption is supported by the net entry-exit data, which show that Chinese nationals entered Ecuador 48,381 times in 2023, but left only 24,240 times. The resulting entry-exit deficit was 24,141, by far the highest number of any nationality. End quote. Next up, we move on to the G7 and China, but just quickly, if you're getting some value from today's episode, it's a huge help if you can like, and if you have not already, subscribed. It's just 2 clicks in the mouse, but this is all I ask to help the channel grow if you are enjoying the content. Thank you so much. Next up, the G7 has published a joint statement with 28 mentions of China, and these are largely negative. Indeed, the statement essentially views China in the same league as Russia as an adversary. A senior Biden administration official who sat in on the conversations of the leaders gathered at the summit and later briefed reporters, described to US-based The New York Times a discussion of China's role that seemed to assume the relationship would be increasingly confrontational. Quote, as time goes on, it becomes clear that President Xi's objective is for Chinese dominance. End quote. It is worth examining some of the G7 statement. Regular viewers will recognize that the US and major European nations have become quite aligned in trade and security concerns over China. Quote, we are not trying to harm China or thwart its economic development. Indeed, a growing China that plays by international rules and norms would be of global interest. However, we express our concerns about China's persistent industrial targeting and comprehensive non-market policies and practices that are leading to global spillovers, market distortions and harmful overcapacity in a growing range of sectors, undermining our workers, industries and economic resilience and security. We are not decoupling or turning inwards. We are de-risking and diversifying supply chains where necessary and appropriate, and fostering resilience to economic cohesion. We further call on China to refrain from adopting export control measures, particularly on critical minerals, that could lead to significant global supply chain disruptions. We express our deep concern at the People's Republic of China's support to Russia. We call on China to press Russia to stop its military aggression and immediately, completely and unconditionally withdraw its troops from Ukraine. We encourage China to support a comprehensive, just and lasting peace based on territorial integrity and the principles and purposes of the UN Charter, including through its direct dialogue with Ukraine. China's ongoing support for Russia's defense industrial bases is enabling Russia to maintain its illegal war in Ukraine and has significant and broad-based security implications. We call on China to cease the transfer of dual-use materials, including weapons, components and equipment that are inputs for Russia's defense sector. End quote. The piece went on, touching on Taiwan, the East and South China Seas, Hong Kong, Xinjiang, and other areas of concern. Beijing, of course, is not happy at all with the statement, which it called, quote, full of arrogance, prejudice, and lies. End quote. In response to the statement, a PRC Foreign Ministry spokesperson accused the group of, quote, hyping up issues related to China, slandering the country with unfounded allegations that lack factual bases, legal grounds, and any sense of morality. The G7 is the one truly responsible for economic coercion, as it continues to politicize and weaponize trade, which is a reversal of our globalized world where countries' interests are already deeply integrated. End quote. The Foreign Ministry then tried to discredit the group, expressing, quote, the G7 does not represent the world. The 7 countries only account for 10% of the world's population. Year after year, their share in global economy has kept dropping. Even combined, they contribute less than China to global economic growth, and their economic aggregate in terms of purchasing power parity, PPP, has already been surpassed by BRICS countries. End quote. Of course, in absolute terms, the G7 still represents over half of global economic output. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Have a good Wednesday, and I will see you all tomorrow.